Good day, everyone. My name is Daisybin R. Andade, and student of Bachelor of Secondary Education, majoring in Mathematics. For today's video, we will tackle about the development of mathematics in ancient period. So, our first stop is Ishango Bones, which dated 35,000 BCE. Ishango Bones is possibly the oldest mathematical artifact still in existence. It was discovered in 1950 in the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa and is named after the region where it was found. It dates back to the Upper Paleolithic period of human history and is approximately 20,000 years old. The bone is 10 centimeters long and contains a series of notches which many scientists believe were used for counting. The grouping of these notches might even suggest some more advanced mathematical grouping of notches, like decimal numbers or prime numbers. Okay, let's move on to Mesopotamian tablets. This is the oldest known clay tablets with mathematical computation. It was created around 2700 BCE in Sumer, one of the earliest civilizations flourished in the Middle East. It shows a multiplication table in cuneiform which may have been used by students, scribes to learn mathematics. Okay, let's proceed to Sumerian multiplication table. This tablet shows a multiplication table that was created around 2600 BCE in the Sumerian city of Shuruppak. It was one of the oldest mathematical tablets we have ever discovered. The table has 3 columns. The dots is the first 2 columns represents distance ranging from 6 meters to 3 kilometers. The third column contains the product of the first 2, which is the area of a rectangle with the given dimensions. Sumer was a region of ancient Mesopotamia in the Middle East. They invented cuneiform as one of the earliest writing systems by pressing small wedge-shaped markers into clay tablets like this one. They also developed the base 60 number system. Okay, next, Babylonian tablet. This Babylonian clay tablet called Pilimton 322 was created around 1750 BCE in Sumeria during the reign of Hammurabi the Great. While more than 1,000 years older than Pythagoras, the rows and columns on this table contains Pythagorean triples integer solution for the equation a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. For example, 3, 4, 5 is a Pythagorean triple because 3 squared plus 4 squared is equal to 5 squared. The exact purpose of the tablet has been debated by archaeologists. Some think that it was a teacher's aid designed to help generate right angled triangles. Other things it might be the very early trigonometry table. So next is Rhind Papyrus. The Rhind Papyrus is one of the most famous mathematical documents from ancient Egypt. It was written around 1550 BCE by a scribe called Ammus, who is maybe the earliest contributor to maths and history, whose name was still known today. The papyrus is around 2 meters long and contains 84 problems about multiplication, division, fraction, and geometry. It was probably used as a kind of textbook by other scribes. One of the most notable sections is a 2 over n table. This shows how you can write rational numbers of the form 2 over n, where n is an odd numbers, a sum of unit fractions. The papyrus is named after Scottish antiquarian Alexander Henry Rhine, who purchased it in Luxor, Egypt. Today, most of its remains are located at the British Museum in London. Tomb of Mina. Mina was a chief scribe in ancient Egypt and in charge of measuring the size of fields for farming, inspected crop yields, reporting to the pharaoh's central field administrator, and calculating taxes. The wall painting in his tomb show the different measuring and calculating techniques used more than 30,000 years ago. For example, in the first row, you see how long distance were measured using ropes with knots at regular intervals. The tomb was built around 1420 BCE in the Valley of the Kings. Thales of Miletus was a Greek mathematician and philosopher who lived 642 to 546 BCE. Thales is often recognized as the first scientist in Western civilization. Rather than using religion or methodology, he tried to explain natural phenomena using scientific approach. He is also the first individual in history that has a mathematical discovery named after him, Thales' theorem. Pythagoras Samosas was a Greek philosopher and mathematician who lived 570 to 495 BCE. He is best known for providing Pythagoras' theorem but made many other mathematical and scientific discoveries. Pythagoras tried to explain music in a mathematical way and discovered that two tones sounds nice together consonant if the ratio of their frequency is a simple fraction. He also founded a school in Italy where he and his students worship mathematics almost like a religion while following number of bizarre rules, but the school was eventually borne down by their adversaries. The next person is Plato, who lived 425 to 347 BC. He was a philosopher in ancient Greece, and together with his teacher Socrates and his student Aristotle, laid the very foundation of Western philosophy and science. Plato founded the Academy of Athens, the first higher learning institutions in the Western world. He, his many writings on philosophy and theology, science and mathematics, politics and justice made him one of the most influential thinkers of all times. Let's proceed to Aristotle. Aristotle was an ancient philosopher in ancient Greece who lived around 384 to 322 BCE. Together with his teacher Plato, he is considered the father of Western philosophy. He was also the private tutor of Alexander the Great. Aristotle wrote about science, mathematics, philosophy, poetry, music, politics, rhetoric, linguistics, and many other subjects. His work was highly influential during Middle Ages and into the Renaissance, and his view on ethics and philosophical questions are still being discussed today. Aristotle is also the first known person to formally study logic, including its application in science and mathematics. Another contributor of the development of mathematics in ancient times is Euclid of Alexandria, who lived around 300 BCE. He was a Greek mathematician and is often called the father of geometry. His book, The Elements, first introduced Euclidean geometry, defines its five axioms, and contains many important proofs in geometry and number theory, including that there are infinitely many prime numbers. It is one of the most influential books ever published and was used as textbooks in mathematics until 19th century. Euclid taught mathematics in Alexandria, but not much else is known about his life. The next contributor in the development of mathematics in the ancient period is Pingala, who was an ancient Indian poet and mathematician who lived around 300 BCE, but very first little is known about his life. He wrote the Kandahastra, where he analyzed Sanskrit poetry mathematically. It also contained the first known explanation on binary numbers, Fibonacci numbers, and Pascal triangle. Let's proceed on the elements. Euclid's elements. Around 300 BCE, Euclid of Alexandria wrote the Elements, collection of 13 books that contain mathematical definition, postulate, theorems, and proofs, and covering topics like geometry and number theory. It is one of the most famous books ever written and one of the most influential works in the history of mathematics. Copies were used as textbooks for thousands of years and studied all around the world, with thousands of new editions published. No original copy of the Elements still exists today. This small papyrus fragment dates back to around 100 AD and may be part of the oldest existing copy of Euclid's work. It is part of the Oxyrhynchus papyri, which were found in 1897 in an ancient rubbish dump in Egypt. The diagram shows that fifth proportion in Book 2 of the Elements, a geometric version of the identity x plus y times the quantity of x minus y is equal to x squared minus y squared. The next thing that contributes to the development of mathematics in ancient period is the bamboo multiplication table. As you can see in the figure, 21 bamboo strips that were created around 2,300 years ago in China. When arranged correctly, they form a multiplication table in base 10, written in ancient Chinese calligraphy, while earlier civilization, like the Babylonians, created multiplication tables in base 60. This is by far the oldest known decimal multiplication table, and it looks very similar to what we still use today. Okay, let's proceed to Archimedes, who is also a contributor in the development of mathematics. Archimedes, who lived around 287 to 212 BCE, was an ancient Greek scientist and engineer, and one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. He discovered many concepts of calculus and worked in geometry, analysis, and mechanics. While taking bath, Archimedes discovered a way to determine the volume of irregular objects using the amount of water that they displace when submerged. He was so excited by this discovery that he ran out of the street still undressed, yelling Eureka, which is Greek word for I have found it. As an engineer, he built ingenious defense mechanism during the siege of his own city, Syracuse in Sicily. Around 2 years, the Roman finally managed to enter the Archimedes, and Archimedes was killed. His last words were, "Do not disturb my circle," which he was studying at the time.